Hello, everyone. Welcome to our Spiritual Spotlight series. Today, I am joined by Chris Wasco. She is a psychic medium and spiritual counselor. Chris, thank you so much for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. I'm so happy you're here today.
Thanks, Rachel. It's great to be here.
So, Chris, can you tell us maybe the initial phase of your spiritual journey and how it began with an intense and emotional healing process?
My
Just
spiritual
jumping right
journeys,
in.
yeah, we're jumping right in, and that's okay. So, my spiritual journey happened because I made a very difficult decision to cut off my parents. I was raised by narcissists. I did not know they were narcissists till much later. And it came to the point of enough is enough. I had a very volatile upbringing, and now that volatility was starting to touch my children and
Wow.
threaten my husband. So I said, I'm enough. I'm done.
Right.
I took this abuse my entire life and I'm not going to let it touch my family. So, and then the first step after that was just panic, because when you're raised by people who pretty much threaten you your entire life and you're
Yeah.
scared of them, it's, well, what are they going to do? What are they going to do to try and punish me? So I was terrified, and I decided I needed to go to therapy, and I worked with a therapist that specialized in narcissistic abuse. And she was kind of like the first to really help validate a lot of the things I had dealt with, a lot of what I was experiencing, and helping me understand a lot of the terms, a lot of the tactics,
Mhm.
and how textbook my parents really were. And through this, I started changing a lot of things, and I was really just healing my energy body.
Yeah.
And because of all these little baby steps I was taking, I was opening myself more to spirit, but unknowingly at the time. So things were just kind of surprising me because they were very subtle. And when I started seeing people in spirit, like I'd be having a conversation like you and I are having right
Right.
now, and I would see like a grandparent behind someone's shoulder, and I would be like, oh my gosh, hi. So it's been a process, but that was, I say, was the beginning.
Yeah. So you kind of touched on this a little bit. So how did your ability to hear and see spirits, particularly your maternal grandfather, influence your path as a psychic medium?
My grandfather actually started showing up before I cut them off. And because he had passed before I was born, it was a little easier for me to communicate with him because I uh, didn't know him. So I didn't have anything to go off of. So, a lot of times when we communicate with our loved ones, it can be difficult to be objective
Yeah,
because we can think it's a memory or what we would want them to say, right? Or
so
behave.
true.
So when he was approaching me and coming to me, everything I'd ever heard about this man had been a comparison to my own father. And I realized, I'm like, he is nothing like my dad. I could maybe see the tendencies, but I was like, this is someone very different. So I started asking, people who knew him, and they were like, oh my gosh, that, yes. Like my uncle was like, yes, that is my father. And you could not know this. So that was just really neat for me, especially because it was he started coming to me before I cut off my parents, like, almost like he knew it was coming, really.
Oh,
And then when it happened, he really started becoming more and more present.
yeah,
And it was just really an interesting thing, because here I thought I was like losing family when I was now connecting to family and
yeah.
spirit. So that was just mind blowing.
I love that. I love that. Now let me ask you this. So your parents, I'm assuming, are still cut off, but
Yes.
do you still talk to other family members? Because you mentioned an uncle. Like, how has that been with no contact with them and keeping your family somewhat intact?
Oh, that's such a good question. So I have a pretty big family. My dad is one of seven children, and only one of them has passed.
Oh,
So many of his siblings are still around, but only one of them still speaks to him. So that should kind of give an indication of where the toxicity
yeah,
lies.
yeah.
My mom has two siblings, and only one still speaks to her. So when I cut off my parents, and I was, connecting to, therapy, as I
Yeah.
said, uh, I was guided to reach out to other family members that cut them off too. And
Wow.
they were so incredibly helpful at the time. Like one of my aunts, for example, she was really pivotal because her words still stick with me. She said, it's going to be very hard at first, but you will find so much peace and you will really appreciate it. And she's at 100% correct, because it's just not worth the stress and the
Oh,
trauma and the toxicity anymore. And we're in such a better place.
I can't even tell you, and I know this because you do theta healing and Reiki healing, which we'll get to. So much energy is coming in to like validate what you're saying. And it's
Yeah.
just so like intense, but beautiful and loving and not, I just love it. I just love the energy that's coming in right now. So if anyone's listening, tap into the energetic field that's currently coming in because it's quite powerful. I'm just
I
like, ooh,
appreciate that. Thank you.
I'm
Yeah.
like,
It's
ooh,
so much energy around it, because there's
yes.
so many layers that come apart
Yeah.
and unveil themselves as you're going through a healing process.
Absolutely. So, what unique challenges and insights have you encountered while working with old souls as something that you work with and victims of narcissistic abuse?
A lot of what I see is that if I'm working with an old soul, there's a narcissist somewhere in the picture. And if I am working with someone that is healing from narcissistic abuse, there's an old soul somewhere in the picture.
Yeah.
And that is something I kind of stumbled on upon my work. Again, almost accidentally. I feel like these things I've just been led to. But a lot of why I started working with old souls is because I identify as an old soul, and they often pick very difficult lessons, and they have very difficult childhoods and pick really challenging experiences. And I wanted to help people, especially parents, understand their old soul children.
Yeah.
So I do work with a lot of kids, primarily
Yes.
their parents, but they'll ask, will you talk to my child? And what was really been amazing is I'm able to hear the inner thoughts of both the parents and the
Yeah.
child. And I've kind of become this, a medium in life to helping them understand what each other is thinking.
Yeah.
Because, there's so many times we say things and it's not exactly what we mean or what we're thinking. So for a child whose brain is still developing, it's hard for them to get their feelings and emotions
Yes.
across. So when they're looked at as difficult, they're not trying to be difficult. They just don't
No.
know how to express their feelings as well. So I help, create that, kind of open those
Yeah.
barriers, if you will.
I love that. So, your concept of spicy old souls is fascinating. Can you maybe elaborate on what that means and how does it help individuals understand their own healing journeys?
So spicy old souls is something I'm still developing, because I
Sorry, I
so
just love the
spicy.
name.
Yeah, I do too. Well, it's funny because when I was thinking of a name, I really wanted something to stick and to stand out and to
Yeah.
really identify with it. What I love about the name is the acronym is SOS,
Mm.
because so old
Ooh,
souls
yes.
often need help, but they
They
don't know how to
do.
ask for it. We are not very good at asking for help because we've had to work so hard at healing ourselves, at going through
Yeah.
our journey ourselves. So we are not help seekers in the way that we probably could be. So Spicy Old Souls kind of serves as like a structured archetype to
Mm.
help people understand themselves, help them understand their energy better, and then work with that energy. In some cases, they might want to heal it. In other ways, they might want to enhance it. So it's
Yeah.
really going to be, think of like when you rank spiciness from mild to spicy, everyone's going to fall into a different line of what they can tolerate. So that's kind of how that personality will work of an old soul. Not every old soul is the same. They will have different layers of spiciness, and that can change from day to day, year to year, or they just embody it on
Yeah.
an entire lifetime level. So it really is going to vary by individual.
As you're saying this, all I have in my mind is like ordering wings and like the extra hot or the
Yep.
mild. And then I'm
Yeah.
like, where would I fall on that scale?
Yeah,
That's
we'll do our own hot wing
yeah.
special and see
It's
what we
like
could like tolerate, and then start crying and like, oh, that's good.
that show scares me and terrifies me because I'm a
Likewise.
mild queen and
Likewise.
yeah, and
Hmm.
I'm like,
I can't do
well,
it.
I love
I cry
yeah.
watching.
Yeah, I same. I'm like,
I
why?
can't.
And then people are like,
Uh-uh.
this is a journey.
Yeah.
This is fun. I'm like,
Yeah.
wow. Wow. I would need to do some sort of medication before I did that show.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not a milk drinker, but I would
Yeah.
need
So I would
something
start
like
that day.
something, right?
Yes.
Exactly. Like I would need something to help me just survive, because they're talking through it too. I would be
Yes.
choking.
And he is a great interviewer. So I think
He
it's called
is,
How We
yeah.
Feast or whatever it's called. Like we props to you, sir. You're an amazing
Yes, I
interviewer. And
agree.
the people that go
Mhm.
on, cheers.
Absolutely.
It's
Cheers.
just too
That is a
much.
show I will not be on unless it's just to
Thank
be a
you.
spectator.
I will just watch from a distance.
Yep,
Like, oh,
exactly.
there goes Chris. I love it.
Exactly.
So, in your experience, how does incorporating psychic abilities into everyday situations like play dates or conversations with friends impact your interactions and relationships?
That's actually how I really was understanding that I could hear thinking of children and parents,
Oh,
but more so children, because I would be on play dates. I myself have 4 children, so going on play
yes.
dates was a common thing. And how many times as moms we're venting about, oh, we
Yes.
didn't get much sleep last night, or my child is doing this and my child is doing that. And if any time they were saying something and didn't match up to what the
Mm,
child was thinking, the child's thoughts would get loud, clairaudiently for me. I would just hear this, and I would then tell the parent. Of course, these are people I'm friends with, so I
of
wouldn't
course.
just be like, hey, by the way, your kid hates you. It was more of, I just want to let you know your child is struggling to get this message
Yeah,
across. Can I share this with you? And it wouldn't be as dramatic as hate, but that I find
I
that
love
kids
it.
often get very frustrated
Mm,
when they don't feel heard or
yes.
understood. And so when I was hearing it and then translating, and then the parents would just be like, oh my gosh. And time would go on and they would say, you've helped change my relationship with my child.
Oh,
And that would always really touch my heart so
yeah.
much, because that's something I would have loved to have done for little me. So it was certainly a part
Yes.
of my own inner child healing. And it was a lot of encouragement along those lines of people that were like, you should do this for a living, whatever this
I
is,
love
go
that.
do it. And I kind of took baby steps to figure out what that meant, to go do it.
Yeah. I love that you work with kids because I think that there are a lot of kids these days that have parents or in relationships where they're just not heard. And you just said that. And it's like, I think it's almost like as a parent, we need to be retrained on how
Exactly.
to
Yeah.
meet a child where they're at. With there's so many different energies and components in life that we didn't have to necessarily navigate through as children. And I feel for the kids that have gone through COVID. Have you
Yeah.
noticed that there's a lot more sensitivities in children now than
Absolutely.
hey, it's wild, right?
Yes. Yes.
It's
Much
overwhelming
more tuned
almost.
in.
Yes. Yes. And I
Yeah.
think for someone like you or, someone like myself who we're tuned in, we're
Yeah.
attuned, we know what's going on. It's like we know where to meet somebody where they're at. But for others, do you have a piece of advice that maybe you could give to somebody who maybe is struggling with tuning in with to their child that as having like it's almost like they don't know how to emotionally regulate. It's just there's so much going on. Do you have a piece of advice for that?
Yeah, I love that description of not being able to emotionally regulate, because that's
Yeah.
really a lot of what's going on. And we
Yeah.
often parent from our own traumas, right?
Yes.
So if we were raised in
Yes.
an environment of fear, we're parenting from fear, and we're going to be like a helicopter parent, right?
Yes.
So really, when it comes to tuning into your kid more, it is so much about listening, but also observing
Yes.
and being quiet. Because as parents, it's tough to be quiet. uh, I don't know
Sure.
if anyone notices how much they are speaking as a parent and telling as a parent. So the more we can just kind of be silent, observe, and if you really want to take the next step, feel your kid's energy,
Mm,
because energy is very easy to feel, especially mother to child, because they have the womb connection. I mean, even adopted children can have
yeah.
a womb connection with their
Yeah.
parents. I've seen that, I've experienced that. So it's still there, because a motherly bond is something very powerful. It's a cord, whether it was created in life or not, it still exists.
Yeah.
So if you can tune into that energy, you will be able to tune into your child's feelings more. You may not always understand them.
Sure.
That's a whole other step, but that takes time. But it's more of that shows the effort to understanding. And if let's just say you're feeling a certain energy, like I sense you're a little tense right now. Do you want to talk about it? And give them the ability to say no if they don't want
Yes.
to. Don't try and drag it out of them. So, there is a give and take to a parent-child relationship. I know not everyone agrees with that, but the more you allow a child to be a human and
Yes.
treat it as such, because I treat children like adults.
Yes.
especially because I work with old souls and they practically are adults. I mean, yes, they are still developing, their brains are still developing, as are their bodies, and there's hormonal aspects involved. But the more you talk to them where they're at, the more you will get through to them.
And it's fascinating how tuned in they really are. Like
Yes.
it's fascinating. I just remember my son, he's 15, but he must have been 14 at the time. And we went into Barnes and Noble and he was like, Mom, we have to go right now. We need to go. And I was like, that's fine. No problem. Let's go. Like, I respect my son and I'll respect what he has to say. Cause I'm like you, I want to meet him where he's at. Cause I want him to have a safe space to let me know what's going on. We get in the car. He starts rubbing his arms off. He's like, that energy, nuh-uh, not for me.
I
No
love it.
way. He's
I
like,
love
send it
it.
back.
Yeah. Return to sender.
And I was
Not
like,
for me.
even though he'll make fun of me for what I do, but I'm like,
Oh yeah.
okay,
Yeah.
that's fine.
Yeah. I'm the crazy woo-woo mom too. So
Oh, I love it. Are you doing your Reiki healing sessions, Mom? Your crystal
yeah.
healing sessions? I'm like, yes, I am. You're
Yeah.
welcome. You get to benefit from the energy
Yeah,
of the house.
exactly. Mama, you see any dead people today? Actually, yes, I did.
I saw quite a few. And they're
Yeah.
right out. There's getting, I'm
Yeah,
kidding. But if you really want to
exactly.
know,
Yeah. And no, there's not any in your bedroom.
oh my goodness, I love that. I love that. Oh my goodness. Okay, we're gonna shift the energy healing. So,
Yeah.
how do you conduct an energy reading or healing session? And what can your clients expect during these healing moments?
The first thing I do in these sessions is I send out a questionnaire,
Nice.
and it is very basic in nature, like what's your favorite color, what's your favorite animal,
I'm like,
because it
blue.
helps me, yeah, exactly, but it helps me connect to your energy.
Oh, I love
So
that.
whereas like in therapy, you're going to spend the first couple sessions
Yes.
like in that getting to know you and understanding and ultimately connecting to energy to
Yeah.
understand a client. I'm doing that via this write up because I can connect to your energy before
Yeah.
I even meet with you online.
Wow.
Most of my clients are online, so I'll
Nice.
make my notes accordingly. And then when I meet with you, I will be connecting, with permission, of course, my chakra system to yours.
Yeah.
And I primarily connect to the heart and solar plexus chakras because I
Nice.
am primarily clairsentient, so I am all about feels.
Yeah.
And then I essentially am scanning, and my energy is scanning the client's energy and seeing where they're at, and I'll
Yeah.
feel blocks. And I'll feel if there's flurried energy, and that's just quick energy, trauma. And when it comes to energy, there's always something that's presented most forward. And that's
Mm,
basically, this is what needs to be tended to first,
sure.
or looked at first, right?
Yeah.
I do this a little differently with kids than I do adults, but with adults, I will basically say, I'm feeling this energy, let's just say your throat chakra. I'm feeling it's very quick. This tells me that you had to really speak up for yourself growing
Hmm.
up. I also felt that you were often criticized for this. And then I'll kind of hear a female voice. I'm like, and I'm getting a female voice, and this feels like mom. So could you tell me a little bit about your relationship with your mother? And then they're like, oh yeah, mom was really hard on me. So it's kind of that initial, and then we
Yeah.
start going into that. And then I will give, some, depending on each session, because each
Sure.
session is different, exercises for them to work through. We might work through something together. They might do something after, or both.
Hmm.
And then with kids, again, just wanting to respect where they're at. So I had a child, or I say child, but he's a teenager.
Mm.
Recently, his most forward energy was his dad. I felt
Wow.
everything in the heart chakra, and it was fractured, and this is all dad.
Yeah.
So I asked, and his mom's there. I don't do
Yeah, of
these
course, of course.
without parental permission. So I said, may I ask you about your dad? Are you comfortable talking about this? And he's just like, no, I'm not. I said, okay, no problem. So we shelf that,
Yeah.
and we'll put that aside until he's ready, if he's ready. And he
True.
may not be, and that's okay. Doesn't mean we can't work around that. So, but it's also, it's letting them know
Hmm.
I know, and that they're also safe with me, and that, I'm not going to force anything. So uh, I love how these sessions go because there's always a progression.
Mm.
So usually people will meet with me once a month. So in a follow-up session, I'm going to scan their energy again, and I'll always notice it's changed. And I love that. And I'll be like, hey, I feel like, you've repaired this, you've repaired that.
Yeah.
That's why I'm so big on giving people exercises, because I want people to have the tools.
Yeah.
We're all on our own healing journey. Yes, I help, but it really is up to the individual to do the
True.
work.
That's so, so true. I love that. I love that you give them homework, but I also really respect the fact that you respect your clients' boundaries. And really, it sounds like consent and ethics and boundaries is paramount for part of your services. Is
It
that something
really
you agree?
is.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Especially because my boundaries were crushed so much in my childhood that I think I'm just like overly respectful of
Right.
boundaries. And especially because, there's energetic boundaries too, and you can push past those, but I would never do that to
Yeah.
someone because it's invasive.
It is. And I think there are, and I'm not sure if you've experienced this, there are, psychic mediums and spiritual counselors that unfortunately take advantage of people that are vulnerable. And,
Yeah.
I would say that definitely if anyone's looking for a psychic medium or a spiritual counselor, really use your discernment.
100%, because uh and I don't even think everyone does it on purpose. I love that this is coming up, because I would have people ask me, and this is often about,
Yeah,
let's just say as an example, someone they work with, oh,
sure.
could you tell me about this person? So when I'm doing a psychic read like that,
Yeah.
every energy I am getting, it would let's just say it's you, you're asking me
Yeah.
about someone you work with. I would be getting that information via you.
Right.
So I'm going through you, but a lot of people don't recognize the fact that you can energetically go around and go right to that person's energy. And I find that that's just unethical, because
Yeah.
you can drain someone's energy that has not given you any permission to really invade, because that's what that is at that point. So, while I feel it's unethical, I also feel there's a lot of people that don't understand how
Mm,
energy works. And you really have to go through the person asking you, not jumping around to someone else, because it works very similar to like an evil eye, and
it
you just don't
does.
want to play with that. So yeah, it's fascinating work.
So I'm going to ask you this question, and this is really off topic. So I have So I have an issue when people are like, I'll send you healing. And it's
Yeah,
like, do you have consent? Did you ask for permission? I'll send you love and light. I'll send you
yeah.
healing. I have a real issue with that. Is that something that you've rubbed up against? I guess it's almost like if the person energetically accepts it, but I do feel like if you're a very powerful, energetic healer, you can zap them and they don't
Yeah.
know what you're doing. It's like, sorry, go ahead, please answer.
No, I think it's a great question, because it is about consent. I know you mentioned Reiki, and I'm also a
Yeah,
Reiki
you
master.
are.
It's, you have to ask, and you need permission. I mean, I've had
Yeah.
people, they're like, can you give Reiki to my dad? He's in the hospital. I was like, I would absolutely love to, but would need his consent.
Yes.
And it's just about that. So, uh, and I think especially because we're in this, like, social media world, where a
Yes.
lot of people will put stories out of things that have bothered them, upset them.
Mhm.
And, a lot of people are good natured and want to help. So they'll
Of
say things
course.
like sending healing vibes your way. So I could see why that would be like, did the person ask, and some
Yeah.
people flat out ask, hey, if anyone can send some healing my
Of
way,
course.
please do. And that's the open door. There's the consent.
Yeah.
So I think we're trained for consent.
Yes.
And and that's an energetic boundary. So it's hard to go around that.
It is. It is. I will say that I will 100% if you're asked if somebody I need help, I'll be like I will pray for them. I will
Yeah.
pray for them and then their angels, guides will
Yes.
disseminate the energy the way that it needs to go.
And it's a good way, to discern that, because not everyone understands that there is that ability. And prayer
Yeah,
is so
it
powerful.
is.
And you don't need consent for prayer. Because like you
Right.
said, their team will do what they need to.
Right.
And prayer lifts us all up. So,
So
it's
true.
definitely great to understand that.
I love this dialogue. I love that we're totally off topic with my questions, but that's
Yeah, it's
okay because this is
beautiful.
all
It's how
amazing.
it flows.
So let me ask you this. What are some of the most common issues that your clients face that prompt them to seek maybe energy readings or psychic mediumship readings from you?
Narcissistic abuse. That is the most common I see, whether it is a spouse or a parent,
Mm,
coworkers. That is definitely the most common. And I've been receiving a lot of clients lately of people that are just awakening more.
Oh,
So they'll
yes.
consider themselves old souls,
Yeah,
and they probably have narcissism somewhere, because
sure.
again, like I said, old souls do, but they'll be saying, I've been having the most vivid dreams. I'm starting to hear things. I don't know what to do about that. Could you help me? And that's why I started teaching spiritual development classes,
Yeah.
because I flew blind in this, so I don't want that to happen to others. So I try and help, guide in that regard.
So with your spiritual development classes, are those online or are those in person?
They are online. I do
Oh, tell us
them
more
via
about it.
Zoom. Yeah,
Nice.
so I basically will just host Zoom, and I will do it live, but I record it so that
Sure.
anyone who can't make it, because time zones, can participate if they want to
Yeah.
watch, and then save it for later and practice.
Nice.
But I like to, there's always a different theme, and I just try and work with the themes and how I'm guided, and just see where spirit takes me. And I've always appreciated where I'm at,
Yeah.
because whatever students I get in each class, I'm guided with what they need at the time.
Oh, nice. I love that. So it could be like you're having a lot of clairaudient students and you just go right down that path. Oh, that's perfect. I love that you tailor it to your students. That's
Yeah,
really
that
tuning into
surprised
their
me
energy.
too. Because
She's like,
I'm type A. I like to plan stuff ahead of time, so I do to a degree. But then it's
right.
like, well, let's see where this
It's like,
takes me.
let's
Yeah,
go. I love
yeah.
that. Before I ask you the last question, if anyone is interested in learning more about you, booking a session, moving forward with classes, what is the best place for them to go to?
My website is chriswasco.com, WASKO,
Very nice
and
website.
thank you. And if they want to see me on social media, it's on Instagram and Facebook at Chris Wasco Medium.
Amazing. So, what advice would you give to our listeners who are just beginning their spiritual journey and maybe looking to connect with their inner selves?
I would say baby steps, because I think we get very eager
Mm,
to get to, I hate to say advanced levels, but Earth is all about that. So I'll just leave it at that, the beginner, intermediate, advanced. And
yeah, so
uh,
true.
I kind of say throw that out the window, because I think there have been people that have been incredibly advanced that think that they're just a beginner because they don't know yet. But
Oh,
and while
good
that may be true to
point.
a degree, those are people that could like spring forward in a matter of months.
So true.
But it's just, again, recognizing the baby steps, and also believing in yourself, believing that you can do it,
Yeah.
believing that, you are part of everything, as we all are. So you have every bit of ability as the rest of us to connect and
Yeah.
to evolve more spiritually. So, yeah, try not to rush through it, and have fun with it, because it can be fun
Yeah.
if we don't stress ourselves out and worry about being wrong, because sometimes your interpretation is just different. It doesn't make you wrong. It's almost like looking at interpreting a poem.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
not everyone's not going to have the same interpretation, but it doesn't make any of them wrong.
So, so true. Like it could be coming, your filtration system is different than mine. Like it's
Like,
how we are taking in the info. That's so true.
yeah.
What a good piece of advice. Well, thank you so much, Chris, for coming on the Spiritual Spotlight series. It's been a pleasure to speak with you today.
Thank you. I have loved this. I appreciate you.